the conference over to Mr. Kamlesh Bagmar from Prabhudas Lilladher Private Limited. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Faizan. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for logging in for Jindal Steel and Power's 2Q FY22 earnings call. Firstly, I want to wish you all a very happy Diwali and prosperous New Year ahead. And without much ado, I hand over the call to Nishant Balanwal, Group Head Investor Relations, to introduce the management and take the call forward. Over to you, Nishant.
Thank you, Kamlesh and Prabhudas Lilladher. Would like to wish everybody also from the company side a very happy Diwali and a prosperous New Year. Taking the call forward, would like to also welcome you all to discuss our 2Q FY22 financial results. Today on the call with us, we have with us our Managing Director, Mr. V.R. Sharma, and our CFO, Mr. Hemant Kumar. Like last time, and to give enough time for question and answers, we would like to directly dive into question and answers, just like last time. So, operator?
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 at this time. The first question is from the line of Ashish Kejriwal from Centrum Broking. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for taking my question. Good evening, everyone. I have two questions. One is, we understand that coking coal cost is on a rise. So, and we are having our Australian coking coal mine which started production somewhere in October. So, is it possible for you to give a sense on how our coking coal cost could be in third quarter versus second quarter? That's my first question.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we have 3 mines outside. One is in Mozambique, the other the coking coal mine. The other is the anthracite mines in South Africa, and we have 2 more mines in Australia. Out of 2 mines, we have 1 mine has already commenced the production. So the first consignment from this mine is about 50,000 tons, likely to reach in the end of November or early December. We will be producing about 2.5 million tons per year to begin with, and then slowly we'll ramp it up. Now, as far as the question of the coking coal prices are, you see, coking coal prices today are hovering around $380 to $410 per ton, FOB Australia, depending upon the different kind of coal availability as per the grade and size. So now, for the calculation purpose, we take the same price, that is index price. So no matter at what price we are getting the material, or no matter at what price we'll be dispatching or exporting material from all these 3 different mines in different countries to India. But for our calculation purpose, for the cost purpose, we'll be taking the index price, international index price. Now, if your question is regarding the cost of manufacturing there, yes, it is about $90 FOB in Australia. Hope I answered you.
Okay, so $90 is on the coal which is directly visible in the blast furnace.
No.
Or it's RM cost we are talking about?
Go to blast furnace. Coal
okay,
first goes to the coke oven. And then from coke one, we make it coke, and then coke goes to blast furnace. So the $90 cost, as I told you, that is in Australia. After that, there is a freight, then there is a washing charges. We wash it, and then finally it goes to the blend of coal in coke oven, and then from coke oven we produce coke, and then coke goes to blast furnace.
Fair enough. And sir, secondly, in terms of steel prices, how much we have
your question is, what is the impact? Impact is not more than $50 because we are adequately covered till January 2022, and impact is not more than $50 per ton of steel.
You are talking about $50 per ton quarter-on-quarter increase on terms of coking coal for us because of all the arrangements that we are doing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great, sir. The second question is on steel prices. We have seen our long product prices increasing since October. So is it possible to just let us know how much price increase we have taken in steel? And because now export prices are somewhat cheaper than domestic price, is there any change in the strategy for export volume going ahead?
Yeah, thank you. So at the moment, the export prices are either 5% or 7% higher than the domestic prices or equal in some of the cases. So we are maintaining our export strategy as it is. So as we have been doing from 30% to 40% of the total export from the total produce. So we'll maintain that 30%, 35%. And till the time it is at par and the demand and supply is met out. Secondly, the prices, yes, you're right, prices have gone up in last 3 months' time. Basically, the input costs have gone up. And till the time the coking coal starts softening, these prices are going to remain stable. The moment the coking coal prices start softening, then whatever the actual impact comes, then the correction will take place accordingly.
So, sir, is it possible to quantify how much increase we have taken or industry has taken in October?
I do not know industry, but I can tell you in our case, we have increased 2,000 rupees in the flat products and 1,500 rupees in the long products. And this week we are taking a decision. Maybe we'll be increasing another 2,000 rupees in flat products and around 1,000 rupees in the long products.
Okay. Thank you, sir, and all the best. Happy Diwali.
Thank you. Happy Diwali to you as well.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vishal Chandak from DAM Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much and congratulations for the good set of numbers, sir. So my question was with respect to the Kasia mines. You've mentioned in the press release that the mines would be operational somewhere in the third quarter itself. So what kind of cost impact will this have on the overall costs for Q3 and going forward?
Yeah. So regarding Kasia mines, yes, we won this mine in the open auction, as you all know. And these are very good mines, having a good quality of the material, iron ore. And this is a running mine. So there is no much of impact except paying some of the bank guarantees to Government of Odisha and day-to-day operations. So hopefully we'll be starting this quarter itself. That is, before December, we'll be in operation.
Sir, if you could explain us how the cost structure would change because of utilizing iron ore from Kasia mines, and what could be the output for this year and next year from these mines?
You see, Kasia mines can give 5 million ton a year. We have another mine that is 3 million ton per year, that is Tensa mine. So put together, our captive supply will be 8 million ton or maybe 8.5 million ton. And in times to come, we can increase Kasia mines to even up to 10 million ton per year. But in the meantime, we have the long-term agreement with OMC and also with NMDC. So we'd like to utilize that long-term agreement benefit also. And this long-term agreement with OMC and NMDC, so this will continue and we'll be blending all of the 4 different iron ore and we'll be utilizing it. So I would say that at least 40% is the self-reliance now, what we have. And 60% will continue buying from OMC and NMDC.
Sure. So my second question was with respect to your deleveraging. We are already at 11,200 now. So from here, should we still expect any further deleveraging in the current year, given that coal costs are rising and the capex is also now kicking in? So how should we look at the deleveraging from the current levels?
I think we will hold our guidance which we have given. It will continue to be that by financial year 2023, as we have given a guidance to the market that we will become a net debt free.
And whatever guidance we have given to the market in the last 3 months, I think we are doing exactly the same. And we are confident that by financial year 23, we would be becoming a net debt-free in the steel sector.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir, and all the best, and wish you a very happy Diwali.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, happy Diwali, boss. Yeah.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sumangal Nevatia from Kotak Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. Just continuing on the previous question on the net debt. So previously in FY22, you had guided for around 8,000 crores of net debt by the end of the year, but we've already reached somewhere around 11,000 crores, and I believe 3,000 crores would come in from the equity of JPL. So would you like to revise your net debt guidance for FY22, given that second half is also looking strong for us?
I think, as you rightly mentioned, outlook for steel is promising, and we stick by our market guidance that by financial year 2023, we will become a net debt free.
Understood. The second question is on the pledges. Any guidance as to when the promoter family is looking to reduce pledges, because given our improving balance sheet situation? Any thoughts on that?
As we have been talking on pledges as well, and we brought from a peak of 1150 to 450 or so, and accordingly the pledges will come down. Otherwise, the few shares being kept in the safe custody of our lenders, I hope that will also get released in the current financial year, so as the company's performance is on a quarterly basis or a sequential basis improving.
Mr. Nevatia, does that answer your question?
Yeah, just one small clarification with respect. I joined the call late. So with respect to this CTO, we receiving the CTO at Angul for extra 1 million ton. Would you in the second half, can we have extra volumes, and I mean, can we go up to 9 million tons next year?
You see, consent to operate for additional 1 million ton is basically, that gives us a flexibility that if you want to increase the production from blast furnace or from electric arc furnace, we can. So, there are so many other factors. It is not just straight jumping from 8 to 9 million ton. But definitely, we are taking up some of the modification measures, which will definitely help us. In any case, last year we were at 7.5 million ton, and this year we'll be crossing more than 8 million ton. And with all these modifications and the changes what we are going to do, not a capex, but it is a modification in the blast furnace and electric arc furnace. We may increase the capacity and we may reach to more than 8.6 or maybe 8.7 million ton, as against of last year of 7.5 million ton.
That's for FY23, right?
Yeah, 22-23, yeah.
Understood. Thank you and all the best, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Indrajit from CLSA. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. A couple of questions from my side. First, can you highlight the impact of the lower thermal coal availability in the past couple of months, and what could be the cost impact of that for third quarter and fourth quarter, if any, mainly on e-auction and also on the linkage part?
There was an impact on prices. Yes, the thermal coal was available at a price of 55 to 60 paisa or maximum 70 paisa per megacal. It reached to as high as 1 rupee per megacal, and also in some cases 1.2 rupees per megacal. But again, demand and supply that has balanced the situation. The entire country was facing some problem of thermal coal. Government of India has taken a very good decision. They have transported a lot of coal to different power plants in the country, and this is the reason that we didn't face any blackout neither to cities nor to MSMEs or industrial sector. Fortunately, we are our both the plants, Raigad and Angul, are located at the thermal coal hub. And we continued lifting material, coal from the mines. For a few days, yes, they stopped e-auctioning, but now they have again come with the tender because the stock is quite good. They are producing more than 2 million ton per day, which is a good size, I would say. So there was a temporary impact in 15 to 20 days time, but now things are becoming normal. Also, you might have seen in the high exchange or energy exchange, the power prices or the power tariff, that is also normalized. So things are better now, and we are getting coal regularly. There is no interruption in terms of coal supplies from Coal India. It is very smooth.
So the higher cost will impact our profitability in third quarter and maybe part of fourth quarter. Is that understanding?
No, it will not. Reason being because we had stock about 30 days. This is one. So the offtake was also less during that time. But when you take the average in next 3 months' time or in H2, so the impact will not be very significant, maybe a very minor impact.
Sure, that is helpful. My second question is on the current demand scenario. Are you seeing already pick up in the demand scenario in India, or is it too soon to come in as we have just come out of monsoon?
Demand of steel in India is at a good level today. I would say we are satisfied. The kind of demand is coming from the infrastructure sector. MSMEs are also doing extremely well. The shipbuilding industry, boiler industry, oxygen plants are coming in a bigger way. Water pipelines are another big area where the government is concentrating and has given a full focus. The other good thing is you might have seen 3 days back, Mr. Biden, the President of the United States, he has lifted the embargo, or in terms of the safeguard duties imposed by Trump administration 2 years back on European Union on steel and aluminium. So this will make a good flow of European steel to America. American steel prices will be coming down from $2,000 to maybe $1,200 or $1,400 in next 6 to 8 weeks' time. And the European Union, they will be selling a lot of steel to America, and the specialty products like specialty plates, specialty wire rods, India will have an opportunity to supply to European Union. So in a way, the demand from European Union will also come. And the European Union, they were also exporting some of the goods to Middle East. And since America is a better economy and across the Atlantic, the freight is also low. So they will be happier to supply to America. And they will not be very glad to supply to eastern part of the Europe and including Middle East and Africa. So that market is definitely available now for the Indian steel. So we feel that the demand from Middle East, demand from African countries, MENA countries, that is Middle East and African, North African countries, will continue to rise, and it will be good for Indian suppliers. And secondly, the demand of specialty plates and specialty hot rolled coils in Europe will also be catered by Indian mills.
Thank you. That's really very clear. One last question, if I may. In terms of our export proportion rising on a higher volume overall in third quarter, can you shed some light on what kind of products are we exporting? Is it more finished steel or semis? What is the mix there?
We have maximized the sale of finished steel, especially the plates, hot rolled coils. These are the first commodity, I would say. Then the structural is another good size. So they're like heavy section beams and parallel flange beams, UCUB beams, heavy angle irons for the power grid corporations in different countries for power transmission, for the structure for the high-rise buildings. So that is on the move. So this is a demand puller, and we are maintaining that. We are not very much keen to supply the semi-finished products or billets or blooms nowadays. So these material are predominantly Ukraine, Russians, and Iranians. They are the major player in exporting such kind of material. But our focus is only on the finished goods.
Thank you so much and all the best. Happy Diwali once.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thanks. Happy Diwali to you too.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Amit Dixit from Edelweiss. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the opportunity and congratulations for a good set of numbers. I had a couple of questions. The first one is on the raw material cost. So if I see raw material cost, QOQ, it has moved by almost 7,000 rupees per ton on, steel sales. So if you can just separate it between, your the cost increase in coking coal cost and iron ore cost and others, that would be helpful.
Yeah, Amit, Hemant this side. As you are aware, in the last June quarter, there was a zero cost inventory of iron ore line, which we have utilized in that quarter. Due to that, there is an impact of 5,500 per ton. Then there is also a small impact of 800 rupees into a coking coal as well. Rest is to other material, ferros and other things put together.
That's very helpful, sir. The second question is on realization. If I look at QOQ increase in realization again, despite the underlying long prices dropping by almost 3,000 rupees, our realization is slightly up. So if you could, last quarter I understand there was some exports and product mix. So what drove the realization in this quarter?
MD sir, you want to take?
Okay, no problem. I will take. So first of all, the realization today, if you see the NSR, it is hovering around 56,000 rupees to 58,000 rupees on an average. We expect that in this particular quarter, it should be around 60,000 rupees and across all the products average. So the prices are somewhere about 56 to 70,000 rupees now for different products. So we feel that these prices will continue for this particular quarter. By the time the coking coal prices start softening, which we are expecting, the world is expecting, though it is very unpredictable, that maybe from January onward, the coking coal prices will start looking down. And till that time, these prices will remain, and the NSR, the net sales realization, will remain in between 56,000 to 65,000, average say about 60,000 rupees per ton.
No, sir, I was asking about, QOQ movement Q1 to Q2. Because I see that, your realization has gone up despite underlying prices, rebar prices, long prices, that they were under pressure. So just wanted to understand why there was a price increase for you and what were the key drivers.
Sorry, why?
No, what was the reason for this price increase for you? What were the key drivers?
Demand. Only one driver, demand. And international demand as well as domestic demand. You see, we do not lead the price movement. Prices are driven by the demand and the international scenario. So when the prices were going to 1,200 euro per ton in Europe, definitely we are also getting same price. But these factors, are uncontrollable. So demand was very high. Similarly, demand in India was also very high.
Amit, plus as you wanted to know about exports, definitely export markets were very lucrative and healthy in the quarter and in September. And also the fact that we have exported 40% to the export market and as against 34% last quarter. 44%. I would like to correct. 44% this quarter as against last quarter 34%.
Okay, sir. Thank you. That's helpful. All the best and happy Diwali to all of you.
Thank you.
Happy Diwali to you, Amit.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kirtan Mehta from BOB Capital Markets. Please go ahead.
Hello. Sir, thank you for this opportunity. I just wanted to understand a bit more about the price realizations, the way you are guiding about the 1,500 rupees per ton you have taken in October, another 1,000 is possible on the long products during November as well. But with currently, if at all we look at sort of a discount to the import parity price, the discount is probably wide as around 20% or so. So do you see this discount narrowing over next 3 to 4 months, or do you think that this could continue from here?
What is the discount? 20%?
If at all we sort of compare the domestic prices to the blended international parity prices and calculate the discount, that discount is of the order of around 20% or so.
No, you mean the price difference in between the export versus domestic?
Price differential of the China export prices landed in India, theoretically, versus the domestic prices.
So the China's landing price, yes, you're right. If the China starts exporting to India, it will be at least 5,000 to 7,000 rupees higher than the domestic prices. So this will continue as it is because China does not have material.
Right. And in terms of the progress on the capex plan that you are highlighting, could you sort of take us through the key milestones that had been achieved during this quarter?
This quarter we had a very small exposure in terms of capex, but we want to spend about 18,000 crore rupees in the next 3 years' time to elevate our production from 5.4 million ton in Angul to 9 million ton. So our CFO can tell you that what is the total capex spending we have done in the last quarter and what is likely to be in this quarter. Mr. Hemant, please.
If we talk about for the half year is around 500 crores. If we talk about only for the current quarter is 350 crores. But as far as our projects implementation is concerned, as our MD sir rightly mentioned, we are progressing well as per our plan.
Right. And what would be the capex target for the FY22? What would you be able to actually deliver?
Because most of the time has passed, we are not looking beyond 2,400 to 2,500 crores, all put together in the current financial year for our new projects implemented to our 100% subsidiary.
Sure, sir. Just if I can squeeze in one more question. On the Kasia mine, you said that you'll be able to sort of ramp up to 5 million ton immediately, and in the longer run, it could sort of go up to 10 million ton. So what are the steps needed or what is the work needed at the Kasia mine to raise the production level from 5 million ton to 10 million ton?
I just wanted to put this is the EC is available up to 7.5 million tons. MD sir wanted to say in the current year we can go up to 4 or 5 million tons because now 5 months are only left. The EC is 7.5 million tons.
So it is possible to sort of achieve the 7.5 million ton production in FY23 itself?
23, next 20 million.
Yes.
Definitely, yes.
Right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Bhavin Chheda from Enam Holdings. Please go ahead.
Congrats to the entire team for good performance and record deleveraging done by the company. Good to see a very high deleveraging done in this quarter also. Just a few questions. First on the Australia coal mines, if I heard correctly, you said your FOB cost would be $90 as against the current realizations of $380, $400?
Yes, you're right.
So $380, $400 is hard coking coal. So your Australia grade would be hard coking coal, semi-soft, soft. If you can guide something.
It is hard coking coal.
So from December shipments, you are saying you will be making $300 on Australian coking coal?
It's not a point of making. It's a point of what the actual story is. Because those assets also we have spent a lot of money. So this is the net price, what I told you, the net cost. But, we have to service those debts also. So the point here is, today we are servicing those debts for the last so many years from India. So now these will be self-reliant mines.
No, I understand that, but it's a very big number you are guiding. So because you plan to guide, so if you can give some, because the run rate would start slow and then it would be 2 to 2.5 million per annum. So is this cost upfront or it would be after exit run rate? If you can guide something on this, because if I extrapolate the number, you're guiding 500-600 million tons of EBITDA at Australia coal mines, which are difficult to digest. So if you can throw some light here.
Bhavin, Hemant is right.
Yeah, please carry on. Yeah,
because our MD sir said that we would have 2 to 2.5 million tons of coking coal security available, because we are expecting similar 50% out of this from Chile and 50% from Mozambique as per our current run rate going forward, and that will meet out around 50% of our coking coal requirement in India.
Sure, I'll get more update on this. Second, you also said, if I missed on the number, your Q3 impact on coal would be $50 per ton of steel?
Yes, I said earlier also.
$50, which looks largely covered by the steel price hikes which have been taken in October, and you're looking to take further hike. So Q2 EBITDA looks largely to be maintained because of the aggressive price hikes taken by all the players in India. Is my understanding correct?
Bhavin, as you know, we don't give any future outlook on EBITDA. Plus, no one can say with 100% surety that so much price will move or so much price will come down.
Sure. No, I'm just trying to indicate the math. So your cost hike is largely covered by NSR hike, if that statement is fine.
That you can estimate very well, but we don't give any outlook on EBITDA.
Okay. And the JPL, this equity number of 3,015 crores, what are the pending things, and when we should expect JSPL to realize this equity number?
But I'm happy to advise that we got the shareholders' approval, and expecting the lenders' approval, plus there are 2 and 3 other approvals required. We are sure that we would be able to consummate this deal by the end of this financial year.
Before the financial year. And my last question, you're looking for a bonds issue. So this is largely to refinance the Mauritius debt, and if I understand correctly, the FY22 repayment schedule is $220 million there, right? So this bond would largely refinance Mauritian debt?
I don't want to comment on that. As I mentioned, we want to be net debt free by financial year 2023. And seeing my cash position as in today, I can meet all repayments of overseas from my cash in the bank. So I can't comment on the futuristic thing. Once we do, we'll come back to you.
Sure. Thanks a lot and best of luck. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rashi Chopra from Citigroup. Please go ahead.
From the raw material cost, you indicated that the breakup of the increase this quarter was about 5,500 on iron ore, 800 on coal, and the other materials is the balance. How should we think about this for the third quarter? One. And secondly, in this quarter, what was the pure steel realization delta sequentially, excluding the pellet revenues?
Rashi, as you are aware, quarter on quarter, we always give a blended NSR first. Second, as I reiterated, as you also mentioned, and rightly 5,500 because of our own raw material inventory of iron ore is 5,500 rupees per ton and 800 rupees of coking coal. I've given a guidance only on because we are covered till January, and that delta is looking around $50 per ton on coking coal. Plus iron ore curve, as our MD rightly mentioned, is on a downward or more or less stable. Beyond that, I don't want to comment.
Okay, and this was capex. So effectively, in the second half, we should assume that the capex will be close to about 2,000 crores.
I think there are 6 months, and we are committed because, let us say, I've kept aside 2,500 crores to meet any eventuality for my capex. Is a factor of depending upon how much cash outflow will occur, but we kept 2,500 crores separate to meet any kind of cash requirements coming out of that project in the current financial year.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kamlesh Bagmar from Prabhudas Lilladher. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So, I had one question on the tax part. How much would be the cash outflow? Like, say, are we now on the normal tax rate, or how the things will be on the tax outflow side?
Kamlesh, first of all, good evening. And if we talk about tax and other matters, is a factor of how much availability of tax shield and other things are there. And accordingly, we busted and paid the advance tax for the 2 quarters. Beyond that, I don't want to give any guidance.
No, but I just wanted to know that are we in the normal tax rate regime, or do we have the prior year losses, or all that has been exhausted now?
If we talk about, we are in the tax bracket 25%, but keeping in view the depreciation, unabsorbed, and business losses carried forward, I think working being done, and accordingly advance tax being paid for the 2 quarters.
But like say, assuming we maintain the current run rate of earnings, so would we be in the normal tax regime or not?
Yes. Going forward is a factor of many things. Tax is not a simple jacket. It's not a simple jacket. I can't say it's 25% and all, but we have opted for, because a lot of now, whatever concessions and other things were available are not going to be available as per new tax regime of 25%. And I don't see that we will be crossing beyond 25%.
Okay. So have we opted for 25% new regime, or?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. And lastly, sir, on the overseas coal mines, like in the Mozambique, we would be having just like say 15% yield on the ROM production in form of coking coal. Like say we produce 4 million ton. So maximum, I believe, 0.6 million ton would be the coking coal, while rest thermal coal and all those are very subgrade, and it's very difficult to transport that as well. So, and even in the Australia, like say the ROM, like I had one doubt on that part, because if I see the announcement which were made on the Wollongong coal, that subsidiary, we are allowed to produce 3.6 million ton over next 5 years in total. So how we comment on that, we would be able to produce 2.5 million ton. And even at that part, we would be having maximum, like say, if I see the history of Wollongong, there has not been more than 45% production in terms of overall produce.
I would like to apprise all my stakeholders here. If we move back to the earlier story of 365 meter long wall permission being given to us, and we mined all those in a month's time. And as far as we are giving a guidance that on annually we are going to do a 1 million to 1.2 million tons of production or mining there, I don't find any difficulty. Yes, definitely it is for 3 years. And after that, we already, even for second mine, we are moving ahead. And for this mine, also additional permission will come. Reason being, we have now changed the method of mining, for which their environmental and other authorities are very much comfortable. Let us see how this pans out. And the first shipment is coming out in the first week of November, let us say on a very auspicious day of Diwali. And as you mentioned about Mozambique, I would like to give you that 5 million tons of ROM. And it's not 15%, it's 23 to 24% of ROM comes in the shape of coking coal. Rest is a high caloric value of coal. That comes to 1.2 million tons of coking coal.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Somil Mehta from Kotak Life. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Most have been answered. Just two more questions from my side. First is in terms of what is the status now, given where the coking coal prices are globally and even the thermal coal prices? Do you believe, is it fair to this point in time to maybe find a suitable buyer for these assets? Because, hypothetically, if price is correct by another 50%, the probability of that comes down. So is selling of the assets right now on the drawing board, or what is the thought process over there?
Mr. Hemant?
I request MD sir to take this question because
it's a very, very ticklish question. I tell you one thing. First of all, the investments were made to make things better for Indian operations. We were not interested in selling this coal to the rest of the world and keeping our plant dry. So we will be happy if the things are in good shape, and we keep on importing coal for our captive use. As far as selling the assets, it all depends upon the situation. As of now, we are not a distressed seller, and neither we are thought to sell it immediately. But never know that, because in future what will happen, because many of the new coal mines will not come in the world. As you know, the G20 summit, it is a strong message given to the coal industry and also the thermal power plants that new funding for the thermal power plants will not be available. Now the people, those who are in the business of coking coal, they'll be scouting for mines so that they can find some running mines where they don't have to borrow funds, or they come with a equity partnership, or they come with some joint venture. So these things will change because of the change in the geopolitical situation in the world. So we are working since last 3-4 days after this news. We are also pondering upon that maybe existing players, those who are in coking coal business, they are willing to invest into it, and either in full or in part, or paying us a good premium. Then we will decide what is to be done. So as of now, there is no offer, number one. Number two, we have also not approached to anybody. But the world is changing very fast in terms of the coal assets. And people, those who have the coal mines, they will definitely get a premium.
Sure. But sir, given our extremely high reliance on improving our ESG score, at least that was a rationale for JPL, and that was the right one. Don't you believe selling the coking coal assets or coal assets will further improve our ESG scores?
Yes, you're right. It will. It will improve, definitely. But, coking coal is required. If you don't have our own mines, and if you buy coking coal from somewhere, then the impact is same. Because we are using it. Yeah. Because the blast furnaces are there. So we are working on a different technology, how to convert Indian steam coal or Indian high-ash coal into gas. We are already doing it in Angul. We are the first plant in the world producing coal to gas and gas to DRI. We are working how to produce coal to hydrogen so that we can reduce the overall coal consumption in per ton making of steel. And also how to inject this gas, hydrogen gas, into blast furnaces so that we can reduce at least 15 to 20% of the total coking coal consumption in our plant. So that we are working very seriously with technology suppliers.
Sure. And my second and last question is, while the first half of the year will also have a significant pellet profitability, what we hear is, with the decline in iron ore prices globally, especially in the Chinese market, are we seeing some sort of lower pricing tenders for pellets? I mean, I'm not looking for a specific number, but in terms of qualitatively, do you believe second half of FY22 can be lower in terms of pellet profitability for us versus first half?
No, because today we are consuming pellets at least 60 to 65% in-house. So that is not impacting us. Secondly, we have now 2 pellet plants, and both the plants are running full. As far as the prices are concerned, today the price is about 13,000 rupees a ton for pellets in the domestic market. And also for the export market, the similar prices are available. So today we are short of pellets. We don't have pellets too much. The demand is pretty good because there was a problem of iron ore in the country, and the people were not getting the right size of iron ore. So pellet is in very, very good demand, and we are maintaining a good profitability in that.
Sure. Thank you so much, and all the best, and happy Diwali to you.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Prashant KP Kota from Dolat Capital. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Thanks for taking my question. Really appreciate the renewed power deal that you announced last quarter. So this quarter, pertaining to this quarter, I had a question on, sir, could you please help us reconcile the H1 EBITDA to H1 net debt changes? H1, on a H1 basis.
Mr. Hemant.
If you see, if we talk about in half year, we made a bit of 9,000 crores, and we prepaid around 4,500 crores loan in Indian books. And if you talk about overseas as well, we have paid more than 4,300 crores. And if you talk about capex, as I mentioned, we have already done a capex of around 500 crores put together, and also done a tax payment of 730 odd crores. And there is a very important item which we discussed last time, changes in net working capital, because we have given, because of COVID, all ports and other things choked out, and our most precious cash locked up in our working capital. And I am happy to advise that most of the working capital has been unlocked. If I give a guidance as on today, in the month of today, sitting in the November, is very small amount now left out. We are very hopeful that we will be able to unlock that working capital in the current quarter itself.
Okay, understood. Sir, and really appreciate your efforts on reducing the efforts to identify technologies to reduce the carbon footprint. That is their feedback to you. And sir, just one quick question. There was an earlier participant who asked this question, but more of a broad guidance. What would be the cash tax rate? As in, let's say we made the similar kind of PBT run rate for the next several, let's say 2-3 years. So on a FY23 basis or 24, assuming the PBT is what it is right now, the cash tax broad range is enough, sir. We're not specific because you have a better idea of the depreciation and the carry forward losses, etc.
I think I would like to say we would remain compliant with all tax matters, whether it is all those payments of tax with respect to Indian law at that point of time. Beyond that, I also mentioned I don't want to comment, and we already paid the advance tax as per the calculations for the current financial year. And also we have moved to a new tax regime of 25%, including surcharge and all.
Sure, sir. I was only asking from the point of view of making our projections on free cash flow, etc. That not nothing beyond that. Nothing on the regulatory or compliance.
Prashant, we're very sorry. We'll not be able to give you a projection or an estimate on the future profit or operating profit for that matter.
No, only on the probable cash tax. That's it.
That will actually be, you can understand, right? It will be back calculating through the operating profit or the PAT that we'll make, right?
Sure. Okay, that's fine. Thanks, Nishan. Thanks.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vikas Singh from Phillip Capital. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, my first question pertains to our steel selling. So basically, we have a finished steel capacity versus the production or the sales capacity mismatch. So shall we understand that the incremental 0.5 to 1 million ton which we would be selling in the next 1 year, that would all be semis, or we got some tolling arrangements to convert it into finished?
There is no mismatch as of now. But the mismatch comes when you feel that some of the products are not giving a good EBITDA or good margin. Many times we sell semis because we are getting better margins than the finished products in India. Like, for example, the last 3-4 months were very bad for the rebars. And whereas selling billets were at a higher price than the domestic realization. Sometimes we sell pig iron, which is at a higher price or higher margins or EBITDA than the billets or even the rebars. So we don't have any surplus raw material or semis. Put together, we are a very balanced company, and we have the options available to convert at least 2.5 to 3 million ton of rebars, and we are already doing around 2.5 million ton, I think more, maybe 2.8 million ton plates. So put together, these two items give us more than 6 million ton, more than 5.5 million ton. Then we have rails, we can put 1 million ton. We have medium and sectional light mill that can give another 0.8 million ton. So we have the capacity to roll at least 9 million ton total. But decisions are taken. These are the economical decisions or based on the economics. So whenever we feel that we can earn more profit in selling semis, we sell. Otherwise, we don't sell.
Understood, sir. So my second question pertains to your net debt becoming zero guidance. So what I understand that our foreign basically entities have still not been able to pay off their debt. So are we talking about net debt means that the India would have more cash than the debt in the foreign subsidiaries, or from India we will continue to pay the debts of the foreign subsidiaries and will become net debt zero debt there also?
As I mentioned earlier also, we are sitting on a cash. If we would like to pay all the overseas loan, I can pay. The due date is 31st March of $357 million. And if we talk about the next due date is $106 million on 30th September 2022. And we are expecting to make those payments from India itself, though all cylinders are firing, generating cash, whether it's Mozambique, whether it's Australia. But conservatively, we built into our JSPL operation that we are going to make a payment from India. As of today.
Understood, sir. Understood. Thank you for answering my question, and all the best for future. Happy Diwali, sir.
Happy Diwali. Yeah. Thanks, Vikas. Happy Diwali to you too.
Thank you.
You too.
The next question is from the line of Rajesh Majumdar from B&K Securities. Please go ahead.
Thank you for taking my question, and congratulations once again, sir. Sir, I had a question on the export realizations for the quarter. I know the exact figure, I'm not asking for that, but was it significantly higher than the domestic realization for the quarter?
You see, the export realization, because we are not calculated the way maybe you might be asking.
Okay. And which are the regions which contributed to the bulk of the export? I mean, specifically, if EU and Middle East was a large contributor? Hello.
Sorry, Rajesh, could you repeat your question? There was some muffled sound in between.
Sorry. So my first question was on the export. I couldn't get the answer. What was the answer to that?
So, this is the operator, Mr. Majumdar.
Hello.
The line for Mr. Sharma has got disconnected. Request you all to please stay online.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Hey, operator? Yeah? Operator?
Yes.
Yeah, we will continue while Mr. Sharma will join. I think our CFO, Mr. Hemant Kumar, can take that question.
Rajesh, I can't say whether it's region-wise or not. It's the European countries. Even we have exported to Canada and US and even Middle East and all Asian countries as well.
No, the reason I'm asking this question is that EU has a certain quota for exports, and are we close to fulfilling that export quota now?
I think the quota is on the countries and all, total into that specific country in European countries. And
so Rajesh, this is Nishant here. So as you know, if you were talking about last quarter, it all depends on quarter to quarter. So last quarter, the export realizations were better than the domestic realizations. And region-wise, you have rightly said there might be some quotas, but frankly, all across the world, where you would talk US, Europe, or even Southeast Asia, the prices were healthier at that point in time than India as of last quarter, and therefore we were able to maintain healthy margins or healthy realizations throughout.
No, absolutely. So my second question as a follow-up to that was, we've seen some happenings in the regional markets now in terms of Chinese internal prices falling down by a lot. Now I know that there are some internal guidelines there as to how much they can export and so on and so forth. But will this result in an overall weakness in our export realization going forward compared to what we have seen in the first two quarters? And in that case, will our export volumes come off a little?
Well, let me just check if our MD, Mr. Sharma, is back. Anissa, are you there?
Yes. This is the operator.
Right. Hi, Faizan. Is Mr. Sharma joined back?
Not yet, sir.
Okay. So, Rajesh, regarding your questions, we are supplying, I can tell you, so across EU, Southeast Asia, and the markets are still buoyant there. But I can tell you this quarter, with the Indian markets opening up, like we've always said, our port of call for our products is the Indian markets. And that is where we are looking to supply a bulk of it, while exports remain a key channel for us in case of subdued demand, or in case of minimum volume that we'll always supply there.
Right. So is it feasible to assume that the export contribution will be lower in 2H as compared to 1H in terms of the percentage of volumes?
It's a very relative term if we talk about it. It depends upon the demand and supply, as Nishant rightly mentioned. We are expecting the demand to pick up now. It's a festive season and rainy season is over, and domestic demand is really shaping up. And it depends upon if the domestic demand absorbs. And we'll see, as we have given also the guidance that we will keep our exports in the region of 25 to 40% maximum, and we would like to keep that range 25 to 40%, depending upon the demand and supply situation in India and international markets.
Okay. Thank you. My second question was also relating to the domestic pricing of longs. Now we've seen.
This is your third question. Given the paucity of time, we still have certain members of the fraternity waiting. If we can take the last question, we can always connect offline if that's not a problem. Thanks, sir. Operator, let's take the last question.
Sure, sir. The last question is from the line of Ritesh Shah from Investec. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, sir. Congratulations for a good set of numbers and walking the talk on balance sheet. Really noteworthy. So a couple of questions. First is, sir, you indicated 18,000 crores of capex over 3 years, including 2,500 crores in FY22. How should one build for 23, 24, and 25? Should one just cut off FY22 and split it over 3 years, or it will be back-ended? Some color over here will be useful.
Ritesh, we have already given a guidance on that. As we mentioned, 2,000 to 2,500 crores earmarked for the current financial year. Going forward is around 4,700, then 4,500, then 4,000, then the balance. Because we are expecting to spend this money in the next 4 to 5 years' time.
That's useful. So secondly, can you quantify what is the number on the overseas debt and the debt maturity profile? I think you gave two numbers of 357 and 106 million. I missed out on the timeline over there, sir.
Yeah, $357 million is due on 31st March 2022, and 106 is due on 30th September 2022, and the balance 6 million in the next 3 to 4 years.
This is helpful, sir. And sir, I just wanted to have comfort on one thing, the slurry pipeline and all the incremental expansions which are there, be it beneficiation or everything is within the listed entity. Would that assumption be fair?
Yes. If we talk about our 6 million ton of expansion, that is into our 100% subsidiary. And as far as slurry is concerned, we are implementing into our main company.
Okay. Perfect, sir. Thank you so much. And sir, look forward to more details on the two terms of carbon intensity that you have given by 2030. It's a very encouraging number. Would look forward to more details over there. Thank you so much and happy Diwali.
Thank you, Ritesh. You can talk offline with Nishant on this. He can give you more color with respect to this. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the last question. I now hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
I just wanted to say, with improved sentiments in steel over the near term and company focus on continued debt reduction or deleveraging, JSPL is all set to generate adequate cash flows going forward for meeting all its debt repayments, funding the Angul expansion project, and funding requirements of our overseas business. Now, with the enhanced management focus on Indian steel business, we are confident we will soon be a net debt-free company in the coming months, as we mentioned, by financial year 2023. And I would like to wish everyone a very happy and prosperous New Year to everyone. Now I will hand over to Nishant. And happy Diwali to you. Yeah.
Thank you everybody for joining us today. Happy Diwali again on behalf of the company. I will pass on the call to Kamlesh Bagmer from Prabhudas Lilladher. Kamlesh.
Yeah, thanks, Nishant, and thanks to all for participating in the call. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Prabhudas Lilladher Private Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.
Thank you.